I am a real victim of Jeffrey Epstein.
Jeffrey Epstein and the D.C. Madam are the same ring, falsely purported by media.
How many well-known people are in your book?
Well, Larry, I absolutely have no idea. We estimate statistically there are approximately 20 to 30 to 100 possibilities, and this is based upon a rough estimate of 10,000 clients who use the service over the past 13 or so years, from 1993 to 2006.
I ran a very legitimate business.
Jeffrey Epstein and the D.C. Madam ring was not legitimate. It was forced and coerced sex trafficking crime run by United States government officials. That is the reason why the media and the government lie and attack real victims that tell the truth. The media and the Department of Justice cover up the victims and in so doing profit.
I was trafficked to Jeffrey Epstein and Andrew Windsor by Deborah Palfrey, the D.C. Madam.
The alleged suicides are staged fraud by the media and government.
The reported suicide of Deborah Jean Palfrey, the D.C. Madam.
Jeffrey Epstein has taken his own life.
In addition to Jeffrey Epstein and Deborah Palfrey, at least 4 others in cases of which my daughter and I are victims also died of alleged suicide by hanging.
He was found dead Monday. Investigators say it appears he took his own life, but an investigation is underway.
Following the death of the defendant who's charged in the American case, our U.S. Attorney in Eastern California, Phil Talbert, yesterday filed a civil forfeiture complaint, which will ensure that appropriate action is taken with regard to all the assets that were seized in the course of that investigation.
One victim was just 18 years old when in February she overdosed on a powerful synthetic opioid.
Aisha's death was not an accident. It was premeditated murder by a Russian named Robert Anthony Barozha, who told police he had amnesia at the time. Likewise, it is not an accident that Aisha was an underage victim of Jeffrey Epstein's. Nor is it an accident that the FBI profited over $24 million from the cover-up of the actual crime. The D.C. Madam resurfaced 20 years later when the Epstein news broke under the assumed name Jenny Moore.
Recollections of a person who worked for Jeff Epstein, my roommate. She was intimately involved in every sense of the word with these parties that they would throw.
This is a letter written by my CAA handler, Joseph Alouetta, who attests to the fact that I was trafficked by the D.C. Madam.
Clientele was very powerful. This is Washington, D.C.
I was a student at the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. I was abducted for 2 weeks.
She was up and comer, and that's not what I asked you to do for me.
I answered an ad in the city paper. The ad was ambiguous.
The ad was CIA fraud for Jeffrey Epstein's forced and coerced sex trafficking ring run by military intelligence and the police.
I thought I was going on a real job interview.
Everything is absolutely legal for all intents and purposes. For all intents and purposes. For all intents and purposes.
The intent and purpose was forced sex trafficking of women and their children.
Deborah was professional. I tried to tell Deborah what happened, but something she said made me realize she knew what happened.
Because me and her were friends. And
you and Deborah Palfrey?
Yes, we were friends. And she was trying to get out. She'd already been hit with a tax evasion charge before and not gotten into federal prison time.
You know, when I met you, you told me you worked for the D.C. Madam?
Yes.
Was that true?
Absolutely. Be careful about what we talk about.
Oh, okay.
2 weeks after that phone call, people from the town where Terrell Lee Gravely, the man who abducted me for the D.C. Madam is from, bought property behind me. I was contacted by Terrell Gravely immediately after I spoke to the FBI involved in Epstein's case.
I was abducted for 2 weeks. I called the police. I was moved from Washington, D.C. by Ed Norris, who was the superintendent of the Maryland State Police. He is now an actor, on the show The Wire and has a radio show. Was driven by Jonathan Luna to the Bethesda Marriott on Pook's Hill, where Jeffrey Epstein and Andrew Windsor drugged and raped me.
Authorities began searching for Jonathan Luna, an assistant U.S. attorney, after he failed to show up this morning, was found dead today in Pennsylvania.
My name is Jessica Collins. I live in Virginia. Today is September the 3rd, 2019. If anything happens to me, it's because this information is true, and I have a lot more information about who I was trafficked to in the government. Joe Biden took me on a commercial flight when he was a senator to Manzanillo, Mexico, to an all-inclusive resort for 3 days. He kept holding my hand in public. I told him that I did not feel comfortable with that and to please stop, and he would not stop. He kept doing it, and he told me, good luck getting back without a passport. The counter girls at the airline were nice enough to help me. Even though he tried to leave me, they helped me get back.
Jessica, hi, it's Joe Galvin. First of all, I need to say, the reason I wanted to call you and speak to you is I wanted to establish that, this is a credible thing, and there's no question in my mind now that this is a credible situation, and what I'd really like to do is to give you an opportunity to tell your story in a wider context. Everything you've said to me matches to what I've spoken to other victims, I've spoken to other people, and this is completely. And I think you need to have your, some of the victims had their day in court. You need to have your day as well, and to be able to tell the story.
I would like that.
That's why I wanted to speak to you. I mean, we get a lot of people who are, maybe they're not honest about the situation. You always want to kind of speak to someone and, I suppose, get a good sense of where they are. But speaking to you, I have no doubt that what you're saying is accurate and true. I'd love to connect you with some of my colleagues in the British press, particularly, who could, help you tell your story, which I think I basically have no doubt now that you're telling the truth.
This is Emma Parry from The Sun. I reached out to you on Twitter. I'm interested in your story and wondered if this would be a good time to chat about it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was hoping that
Difference
somebody
between
would
what's
contact me
being told
back
in the media and versus my firsthand experience. So I don't know why that doesn't match up with what I have experienced.
Yeah. Well, I've heard from people who I think Epstein was interested in young girls and girls of age. I spoke to people who were both underage and others were in their 20s. There was one girl who was 28 when she first met him. So you think that was too old for somebody who was only interested in young girls?
Chief? Hey, it's me. Hello, how are you? I've been reading a little bit about your story. In what period do you recall encountering Joe Biden and how?
4 months after I placed that video on the internet, along with a video detailing when Joseph Biden took me to Manzanillo, Mexico, I was set up and arrested under false charges.
You've heard that the people that were at Food Lion that assaulted you are friends with him.
We have a drug dealer rape drugging you, and then the individuals who are complicit in this drug dealer's activity, and the police who see Coy dealing drugs and they are benefiting in some way or not doing their due diligence in protecting the public from this guy who is going around committing severe crimes. Drugging and raping people is a severe crime.
New tonight, deputies from Worcester County, Maryland, arrested 3 people from Accomack County on arson and attempted murder charges. Wendy Taylor, Gary Fleig, and Coy Bailey.
The community on the Eastern Shore is grieving the loss of a man known as a great musician, but an even greater person.